Welcome to Beyond the Business Card podcast.
I started off as an accountant and ended up as the CEO, and just survival of the fittest. Really, it was a tough job, but loved it. Absolutely loved it.
In today's episode of Beyond the Business Card, we meet the man who built a sports empire in the sand, from running rugby teams in London and Edinburgh to launching the region's biggest homegrown obstacle course racing brand. Nic Cartwright has done it all. He's worked with governments, navigated politics, and risked it all to build Cab Sports. This is a masterclass in passion, perseverance, and building in the Middle East. Let's get into it. So, Nic, welcome to the show.
Cheers, Justin. Nice to be here. Thanks for the invite. Look forward to the chat.
Good. Now, Nic, you've been in the region for how long now?
About 15 years now.
15 years in the region. But previous to that, you sort of worked in the sports industry right from university. Is that right?
Yeah, I came to Dubai in 2000. I was working for a rugby league team then, and through just a quirk of business, we actually came and spent the winter, the European winter, because it was actually cheaper to come here and train than do what we're doing in the UK. So, my first time in Dubai, and I spent 3 months here, was sort of into December 2000.
Okay.
I first worked in sports, mid-90s. Just always loved sports.
Yeah.
Playing, watching, and when I could, I just, the recruitment consultants at the time in London, I was like, I want to work in sports. And at the time, it wasn't the biggest industry. Premier League sides had sort of 2 staff off pitch. The sport was big, but the business of sport was only really in America. America's always been about the business of sport. Sport was the king, playing it rather than commercializing it. And it just took a while to get a job. And once I got a job, I stuck at it, and I've never looked back. Yeah, really enjoy working in it. They always say, love what you do. If you're going to work, love what you do. And I don't really work. I just do what I enjoy. I've been fortunate. I've done pretty well. I get really relatively well paid throughout my career. So it helps pay the bills. Love what you do, and you're not being well paid, it's more difficult. But, I don't really worry about stuff like that. I just really enjoy what I do and love doing it.
So you're very lucky. So you've managed to turn a passion, what most people would say would be their hobby or what they do outside of work. You've turned that into your career. But you didn't start that way. And what we do in this podcast is we talk about the journey of the entrepreneur. Okay. We talk about, your foundation story. We talk about your first job, and then obviously how you can get into the world of the career and then to run the business that you've got now. And when I looked at your CV and background, and when we discussed off camera, it wasn't the traditional route, because you had a spell as an accountant by the looks of it. But tell me, in your early days, where are you from in the UK?
My mum's family is Welsh. So bizarrely, when it comes to rugby, I support Wales. But everything else, I'm English.
Right.
So when I was at college in the 80s, 90s, Wales were rubbish. So my formative rugby enjoying years was just getting smashed every week. Smashed as in getting beaten every weekend. So my mum's family is Welsh, my dad's family is English. Okay. I grew up in Norfolk. I went to school. I actually went to a sports school, Millfield School in Somerset. And I went to a sports university. And I was a reasonable player, but never appetite to play anything. So I went to school, then went to Loughborough, both really sporty places. But even before that, one of my early memories are, I remember watching the European Cup final in the 1970s when Liverpool and Nottingham Forest and Aston Villa were winning. It was 3 channels, sit down with your family. I wasn't a Liverpool fan, but I wanted Liverpool to win. And so just everything about my life has always been sports. And then at college played, kept watching, whatever it is. My wife... I'm not on social media really, but my wife posts images of, excuse my language, crap that I watch on TV. She posted at the weekend I was watching Marbula 1, which is Formula 1 with marbles. And she's like,
Marbula 1?
Yeah,
wow.
It's embarrassing.
Never ever heard of that.
It's embarrassing. But, I'm like, I want to see who wins.
Yeah, yeah.
So it was just, that's everything. And, you leave college with... I didn't know what I was doing.
Yeah.
My girlfriend at the time suggested I go and do accountancy because it's 4 more years of bettering yourself. And I had a good time. I enjoyed learning, but I knew it wasn't really for me.
Mm-hmm.
I was in Australia for a year. After doing that, I just got a job in Australia to go and experience the world. And while I was there, I was still an accountant, but I was working for a company that was sponsoring the Formula 1. And part of my job was managing auditing the Formula One. I was like, geez, this is what I want to do. So when I came back, I just told the recruitment consultants, get me a job in sports. And there wasn't many. They just found one, luckily. And that was the London Broncos rugby league team. And just, I started off as an accountant and ended up as the CEO. And just survival of the fittest, really. It was a tough job, but loved it. Absolutely loved it. And, you mentioned you love what you do. All my friends from college, they became bankers or investment brokers. They've got a lot more money than I have. But
I'm intrigued though, because when I looked at your CV, obviously that's why I said the unconventional route, because I saw this accountancy and I thought, well, that seems like a pivot. But actually the schools that you went to were very sports focused. How many from those sort of your cohort in school or in university ended up making a career in sport out of interest?
I was young at school, so I just had a scholarship. So I was ahead of myself. And I was pretty young anyway. So I wasn't the most social person at school necessarily. So I don't think I know anybody from school. The people in my peer group were always a year older than me, a year bigger than me. And so I just left quiet. Then I had a year out, spent in America, went to college, and you're at the right age. So my friends who I've kept are from university. I don't think any of my friends worked in sports. Like I said, it wasn't really a thing back then. Loughborough now is most people in sports seem to come from Loughborough University. If you're on LinkedIn, there's just Loughborough. I'm guessing I'm just a little bit older than that sweep that came through the industry. So I don't know anybody from college who got into sports.
Wow. So you were a pioneer in that respect then from that cohort.
It was weird. My college degree was business studies at Loughborough or whatever the name was.
Yeah. And
the first 2 years I'd done it at school. So it wasn't really, even business studies wasn't really a big thing then. And obviously it's huge now, but I'd done it at school. I did business at school, and then I chose to do business because I thought this is what my mum's a big entrepreneur. So I was like, I want to do that. But I loved college. I loved it because the course was easy. I enjoyed playing sports. It was a great place for it. And, I enjoy having a party. So that's what college is all around. So, my college years were amazing. And then, when it's time to get serious, I've been lucky not to have to be too serious because, I just enjoy the sports.
I think you're probably selling yourself a bit short there. But so let's talk about those. What your mum's an entrepreneur, right?
Yeah.
You just said. And so tell me a bit about the family setup from when you were growing up.
So my dad's finance jobs. My mum was at the time, a homemaker. We moved to Norfolk when I was really young. And, my mum was, I can't remember, but my mum was, doing mum things. And in her spare time, she ran a shop. And then in the spare time, she made jam for that shop. And she's a very good cook. Well, she wasn't, but then she became a very good cook. And so made good jam. And then the story is that Macy's called her up one day and said...
Macy's?
Macy's from New York, yeah. This is in the 80s. Maybe, in the 80s.
So she's selling jam
locally in Norfolk.
And Macy's called her.
She'd grown a little bit, but it was literally all the jam was, our house stunk of jam.
Right.
So she was making in the kitchen. Yeah. Macy's called her up and said, would you be interested in supplying? And she's like, well, how much? And they said 20. And she's like, well, we can probably do 20 jars of jam, no problem. No, we need 20 pallets of jam. So again, this is when I was way too young to know. But I think then my parents decided that if we're going to go all in, she needs to, go for it. So they set up a company that for a number of years did really, really well. I think the store-in-store concept where you go to Harrods and you see these brands now in store, I think they were one of the pioneers for that back in the day. She was Businesswoman of the Year in the 90s.
In the UK?
In her region, so the east of England, Businesswoman of the Year sometime in the 90s. So, and all this time I was at school, I was away in Millfield.
Yeah.
I didn't, the story about...
You didn't really know that Mum was becoming like the jam queen.
Yeah, you could see it. The company's called Cartwright and Butler.
Yeah.
Which, like, now, if you go to the airport, you'll see that company. It's actually owned by someone else now. So, but I showed my son, that's
That's your gran.
That's your mangi, which is the Welsh word for your gran. So yes, I was away at school. You don't notice these things, and she was away flying around the world. Bloomingdale's, Macy's, trade shows all over the world, and and it was jam, chutney, tea, coffee, fudge. Big business. And then I went to college, and
Do you have siblings?
I got 2 brothers, yeah.
And younger or older?
I'm the sensible older one.
Oh, you're the sensible older one. Interesting. So do you think, oh yeah, surely that must have had an impact on you, what your mum was doing. Do you think did it have an impact on them? Are they entrepreneurs?
We're all really different.
Okay.
We're all really, really different in almost every single way.
Really?
And plus because I've lived away from home for such a long time, we don't, we're close, but just really, really different, like literally in every single way, the way we look, the jobs we have, the type of person we are, our health, our family choices. It's kind of bizarre because the upbringing was obviously really similar. We went to different private schools, but the subset of private schools is thanks. But like you just turn out. It's nature and nurture. It's nurture seems to work with us.
Was there boys or girls, your siblings?
Or 3 boys.
3 boys.
3 boys.
So competition was like competitive environment?
Yeah, we used to play backyard cricket. The swing ball with the tennis.
Yeah, I know that.
Against the wall.
Yeah.
My heroes growing up are Ian Botham, Vivian Richards, Richard Hadley, those guys. And we lived on the beach, so I struggle to get my son to do anything other than enjoy his screen. Literally, Mum would disappear, and we'd disappear for 8 hours on the beach. Many times I got buried under sand or could have died. And you come back 10 hours later. Yeah, no, Mum, great day.
Yeah.
So we played football on the beach, swimming, cricket.
Yeah.
Yeah, great.
Sounds a lovely upbringing.
I'm super happy. You don't really realize it at the time, but my dad used to come and watch me play. It was cricket, hockey, and rugby. I played every single weekend. In Somerset, they lived in Norfolk. It's a 6-hour drive.
Yeah.
I just see my dad turn up and I'm like, hey, Dad, how are you? Thanks for coming. Maybe have 2 minutes chat. Then I go and get washed and he's going home. You don't realize until you're older as a parent that he was driving 12 hours a weekend just to come and watch his son play. And, I am where I am because of the journey I've been on. And, obviously that's a lot to me, but, without your parents putting you in the right place, it's difficult. So I'm, very close to, my father passed away sadly, but my mum and my dad I was very close to. They divorced when I was still at school. I never really understood why. I've never asked. It is what it is.
Yeah. You never asked?
No, just it's difficult. It's difficult for both, and life moves on. And because I was at school, the wrong time, then you go to college, and many years while I was at college and living in London, your priorities change. And I didn't get married till I was a lot older in life, and I enjoyed those years. Yeah, before I got married.
Yeah,
and the relationship with your parents is, I didn't see them as often, and so you just don't. Yeah, maybe selfishly you don't care. I wasn't in my head. I don't care. Yeah, it just what do you want to do? It's a good story. My mum called me up and saying, "Can you come home and help with a function I'm putting on for this family that is friends of mine?" And I'm like, really, do I want to go to Norfolk and, be a butler? Norfolk's a tough place to get to. Or do I want to stay in London and do exactly what I've been doing every weekend with my mates? Oh, God, I got to go. But I went and, I met my missus there. So
that's where you met your wife, one of your mum's
middle of Norfolk. Yeah, in the middle of Norfolk.
Wow.
Yeah. So,
was this when she was still running the Jam Empire?
No, she stopped then. She stopped doing that. Yeah.
So how did that... Did she ended up selling the brand, obviously? Yeah,
so I think it's it's a hard story, I think, to go through, but my mum cares way too much about her kids. Her kids will, most parents will do anything for their kids. Yeah. I learned from that. I'm like, you have to stop at some point. But I think my mum just made decisions based on what is best for my family. So she, passed the company on to other people. And then it ended up, I think it went dormant for a while. A few years after she gave it up, I think she sold it, they did a management buyout or something. Okay. And then it stopped, and then another company has now taken the brand, and it's like if you're on Moonpig or all these things, it's like Cartwright Butler. I don't think it's a different type of company now, but the brand name is. Yeah. She got in touch with them a few years ago and said, the story about where Cartwright Butler was formed is not true.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm Mrs. Cartwright.
Yeah.
And they're like, no, we prefer this story because it's like it's a company.
Oh, they said they preferred it.
We're born in Yorkshire, and you're like,
yeah, okay,
not really. I've never met them, so
yeah, fair enough. So actually, from me saying it was an unconventional route to sports, it sounds like actually it was a completely conventional route to sports, because it could be, competitive spirit with your brothers. Like you were allowed to be as adventurous and free spirited and play sports, encouraged that by your parents. So the move into accountancy is the weird one.
Yeah.
And you did that, I guess, because your dad was in finance and you looked like the sensible, proper job to do.
Just my girlfriend was like, you need to do something. You need to do something.
Okay.
I was making sandwiches for a living, and she's like, you can do better than this.
Yeah.
Yeah. You need to do better than this.
Yeah.
So thanks to her at that time. And, you go to London, accountancy is a great job.
Yeah.
It's an education. Like I wasn't really challenged at college, and accountancy really does challenge you. Literally for like 15 years after leaving, I still used to have nightmares about the exams because they were really difficult. And it's a good education for business. And while I was there, I was in the entrepreneurial division.
Yeah.
I don't know if I chose that or that was a happy accident, but you get to go to these small companies and see what they're doing and see the effort that you have to put in as a small business rather than an entrepreneurial business. For accountancy is millions of dollars. It's not like, man and his dog. But still, I wasn't auditing BP.
Yeah.
I enjoyed it. But like when I had to get a proper job, I worked for Sainsbury's for like 6 months, and I was like, I'm not doing this, So I went to Australia.
You didn't enjoy stacking shelves?
Yeah. I mean, people joke, but I was auditing the people who were stacking the shelves, and it's like, you get well paid. There's a career progression. You get nice benefits, but this is not what I'm built to do.
Yeah.
So, I don't know what I'm built to do. Let's go to Australia.
What did you do in Australia?
I lived on the beach with a friend of mine who'd moved out there. At the time, I used to get to work at 9 o'clock in the morning. No one was there. And by 5, everybody had left. And this is coming from an accountancy firm in Sainsbury's in London, where you're working 10 hours a day. The sun's always shining. I used to cycle to work along the beach, cycle home by 6. You literally, we'd have dinner, watch an episode of Seinfeld, go to the gym, come back, have a glass of wine and watch the sun go down. You're like, I'm never going home.
Yeah.
But you miss your family and So
it's
I
worked
for the Philip Morris.
Okay.
Who sponsored the Formula One and,
So, but I mean, that's quite ballsy to kind of quit your accountancy job for Sainsbury's, your amazing brand, just go and live in Australia. I mean, what made you just impulsively do that?
It was a combination of this is obviously not working. And then the girl at the time I was with, she was traveling.
Yeah.
And I was like, I'm not going to come traveling with you.
Same girl?
No, different girl. Different story. But I was like, I'm not going to get in the way you're traveling. You keep traveling. But if this is going to work, I'd rather be, she was living in Sydney and I was living in Melbourne. I'd rather be 4-hour flight away than never see you. So I just, I'll don't go and do that. We saw each other we traveled for a bit. And then, what happened there, I don't want my missus to be my current wife, my only wife, not my current wife, my only wife, to be focused on this. But I just came home and I got a job in sports, and that relationship ended because I was just so focused on this job. I'm like, look, I can't, that job then involved working at the weekends. And we didn't necessarily fall out, but I was just like, I've done it. This is what I want to do. And it wasn't a mental decision, but it was just like every decision I made was like, what do I need to do for this company now to make this job work? And for a period of time, I didn't suffer the relationships. That relationship suffered because it ended, but then I didn't really have relationships because I was in love with, the job. Yeah.
So this is where you moved into, this is the Broncos, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So for those that don't know, the London Broncos, they were the rugby league team, right? In London. And rugby league is traditionally a sport that's played in the north of the UK.
Yeah.
So this was a new franchise, if you will, and looking to break the mold and introduce the sport into the south. Now, how did you get into that opportunity? Just to help us explain. And you alluded to this earlier. You went from the accountant to CEO of the business. That's quite a trajectory.
Yeah.
And that pretty much I imagine, sort of helped frame your career sort of ever since then, right?
Yeah.
That seems to be the job, your foundation job.
Yeah.
So give us, for the benefit of the audience, give us an idea of how you went in at that level, managed to make make the most of the opportunity. I'd really like to unpick that.
Yeah. It's probably the job that shaped me the most. You know, you're a qualified accountant. I mean, I was well paid. So, you know, there's people who get much less than that, but I made multiple times. I was there maybe 7-8 years. Multiple times I was like, well, we can't afford that. So reduce my salary. Don't pay me this. Don't pay me this. And during the time you learn a lot. It's probably the one that shaped me the most. You know, I loved it at the time. What I'm currently doing now, like I love it as well because it's 100% mine. And those would probably be the two standout jobs. And to try and compare them, I don't know. But to answer your question, I came back from Australia. I wanted to work and the recruitment consultant was like, well, you won't. I'm like, well,
so you went to a recruitment consultant when you got back and basically you said to him, I don't want to be an accountant, right? I want to get into sports.
Yeah.
Now, I run a recruitment business. That's probably one of the worst things you can say to a recruiter because they'll want to put you into, they want to do one that matches your CV. For you to say, like, I don't want that. So the recruiter then obviously found this sports accountancy role, and that was that was your way in, yeah?
Yeah, I mean, I think luckily London Broncos were owned by the Virgin Group at the time. So it was a proper setup. You know, many sports, I think I said to you, so there's lots of sports clubs at the time were really badly run.
Yeah.
No investment off field, whereas Virgin were trying to do it properly, fair play to them. It didn't take too long. So fortunate again to a degree. I just said, oh, I'm not. And they're like, what about this job working for BP? Did BP play sports? No. So please come back to me. So I didn't get many calls, to be fair. But then they said, look, you're a lucky boy. There is a job. There's a 1 week placement at a rugby league team. And at the time, 1 week, yeah. And at the time, my upbringing was I'm from the south. I used to laugh at rugby league because it's from the north and this racial divide, whatever it was. I didn't know anything about it. I knew that Ellery Hanley, Martin Afire were unbelievable talents. And I went down there for a week. My job was to help Virgin tidy up a mess. I think maybe just my character, just to muck in. I was relatively quiet with new people. Tony, who was the CEO at the time, is a really close friend of mine now. He was the London Broncos had been created by Brisbane Broncos, who one of the world's best teams, buying a London team and trying to help it develop in Super League. And then 1 week became, well, can we get 2 weeks? And every week they'd have to go back to Virgin to pay my additional costs. And literally for about 6 months, it was like, well, Monday, you're leaving on Friday. Friday, come back 1 more week.
Yeah.
And then,
must be quite unsettling for you, not knowing if you're going to have a job the following week, right?
Yeah, when I was living with my brother was at college in Kingston. I was just literally sleeping on his floor because it was close to where Twickenham was. We were based at Twickenham. And
were you playing at Twickenham Stadium?
It's the one across the road. So
right.
Harlequin, we shared with them at the time. And yeah, I mean, maybe not 6 months, but certainly months.
Yeah.
My Friday, Monday. And eventually I was like, look, you're paying me and you're paying the recruitment consultant and you're paying this. Save some money, And then they made me the commercial director, which I'd never done before, trying to make money rather than audit money. And, and then they went through a turbulent time. Finances were rough. Virgin decided to pull out. Virgin's, back in the day, Virgin had Virgin Bride, Virgin Denim. They had so many
Virgin
things.
Cola.
They had everything.
Yeah.
Loads of these businesses were just Richard Branson going,
I'll try it.
Let's do this. And, as they became more corporate, let's just do the things that make money, planes. So they jettisoned the Broncos. And then at that time, the finances became tight because they were spending a lot of money on the team. Sports club ownership is expensive.
Yeah.
And, the CEOs then, he's going to change and he's changed. Tony became the coach. The guy who came in was ineffectual. And they're like, Nick, you care about it. You're obviously organised. People like you. Yeah, and this is 5 or 6 years later, so I built up
a good reputation. You're trusted as a numbers guy.
Yeah. So
why not just give this a go? It's at the right place at the right time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I just understood. I guess that history with my mum, kind of, you understand how to make a business run. Sport is a pretty simple thing. Like it's, you're not making warships. It's not complicated.
So where do you make your money in sport then?
Yeah, I mean, in those businesses, corporations mostly cover the costs,
sponsorship
for people that follow sport. Football is number one, and most of the money comes from corporations, television and corporations. Fans, at the lower level of sports, you don't get sponsors, so fans have to do it, whether that's gifts or ticket sales or buying the T-shirt or buying a pie or whatever it is. In this part of the world, governments invest a lot, and I think this part of the world is not unique, but I think it's got to be the leading place in the world for government investment in sport. But yeah, back in the day, Virgin was probably 50% of the money, and that disappeared. So then it was cut costs, make some more money, and they were very lucky. They had just a legend of a guy called David Hughes, he funded the club for maybe 30 years. Actually, last year he stopped. But he was, for whatever, and some people would have criticised him for not doing X, Y, Z, but it wasn't his job to do that.
So he stepped in and funded.
Yeah, he was a part owner. Yeah. He just loved it. Yeah. He was an investment banker, I think, a trader, and just loved it. He was part owner in Charlton Football Club. The London Broncos went to Charlton, didn't work out. He funded the Bills. We went back to Harlequins for a brief period of time, maybe 2 or 3 years. They actually merged. And that was kind of my thoughts, that was the route to success, because rugby union, certainly in England, is much more wealthy than rugby league. So if Harlequins could have both teams share facilities, and, for whatever reason, it didn't work out. And then it coincided with me just getting married. And I'm like, well, I need to leave now. So just made a decision for my family before my job. Yeah. And, just that was the end of 10 years of...
So you got married and decided to leave the job, right?
So Steph's from New York. She's a bit younger than me. Well, a lot younger than me. She's a bit younger than me now, but back then it was a big percentage.
Yeah.
And she came over and I was in my job, and I just, after maybe 4 months, I was like, look, you've given up your job, your career, your family. I'm doing exactly the same thing. My friends are the same. The job's the same. I know you're all happy, but I was like, I need to give something up as well. So I'm going to quit my job. We traveled for a bit, and then we're like, well, where should we go? What should we do? Where should we live? And it was we went to Edinburgh for a weekend. It was February, saw some friends. It was bright blue sky, and we're like, this is amazing.
One of the rare days.
How bad can it be?
Lulled into full sense of security.
Exactly. Yeah. And that was literally the best day in 4 years.
Yeah.
So we just moved there because we had friends there. Didn't have a job. Moved up there. I had maybe, whatever that theory is, keep enough cash to look after your life for a period of time. I want to invest in my wife rather than my job. I'll find a job, but Scotland's not got many jobs for sports. So while I was there, I interviewed for the CEO at the Glasgow Football Club. I don't think my CV was ready for that, but I got an interview. And then I interviewed for the Glasgow Rugby, who were a Heineken Cup side job. And a really close friend of mine was actually doing the job part-time at the time. He'd someone I'd known for 15 years in rugby league. I was like, well, he's going to get the job. But I'm going to go, and I got interviews, and I met the CEO of Scottish Rugby. And, I did okay. And he called me and said, look, we're going to give it to Ian. He's doing a good job there, so he's going to have it. But, well done, and thanks very much for coming. And then literally a week later, he's like, Nick, the job for Edinburgh has just come up. And I'm like, no commute to Glasgow? Yeah. Amazing. Yeah. And it wasn't even an interview process for Edinburgh. It was like, he's the guy. So, again, happy circumstance to a degree. And, Edinburgh's a great place. It was a really cool club. Really enjoyed my time there. Rugby union, when I was rugby league, you go to the north of England. When I was in rugby union, Toulouse, Paris, Dublin, world great cities around the world.
So what was the actual job in Edinburgh then? So you were running...
I was the chief executive of Edinburgh Rugby Club.
Yeah.
At the time, Edinburgh had just been purchased by Scottish Rugby.
Yeah.
So they had been owned by private individuals, and it just wasn't working, and Scottish Rugby wanted full ownership. So they'd done a deal to take ownership of the club. It was on its backside, really. So the job was to help it establish itself as a decent club. And there's only, at the time, I think there was 3 Premier League clubs, whatever the division is. There's now 2. There's Glasgow and Edinburgh, and they're doing okay now. Yeah. So Glasgow have won the URC, that competition. Edinburgh have made the semi-finals of the Heineken Cup. So they're doing okay, and Scottish Rugby is
getting
better organised than it was, and Scotland's doing okay. Even it's crazy in rugby, probably when it comes to the Six Nations, I'll be like, who do you want to win? I want Scotland to win because I've worked there, I have so many friends, and I want them to win. And then it's like, who do you want to finish second? Wales.
Yeah.
And then who do you want to finish third? I'm like, probably Ireland, because my dad married an Irish lady.
Okay.
And then it's like, well, okay, fourth England. But even with rugby, because England's this massive behemoth, and they,
Yeah.
you know, there's an element of I don't know what the right word is, but you know, England.
You like the underdog,
probably, probably. And England and France should dominate. They've got so much more resources.
Yeah.
It's just like, come on, guys. They can't be doing it right. I don't know why, but they can't be because they don't win enough.
Yeah.
So, you know, it's weird because in England, but in football, I'm on the terraces cheering for Kevin Keegan and Glenn Hoddle, and you know, and when it comes to any other sport, England all the way. But in rugby, it's just Scotland, then Wales, and it's like,
gotcha.
It is what it is.
So you said when you arrived at Edinburgh, it was a very interesting time for the business or for the club, because they'd clearly been sort of taken, privately owned, was a mess.
Yeah.
Scottish rugby union's taken it over. You're coming as a Mr. Fix-It. Do you think your numbers background actually sort of really sort of served you well, and the fact you can fix it because you understand how the numbers work?
Yeah. Simple answer, yes. You know, a lot of leaders in sport, in business, you know, they are accountants.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, you can create a lot of stuff, but if the business doesn't have foundations, at the end of the day, you've got to look after your numbers.
So you knew what the back end numbers, you knew the accounting side, and you'd worked in the commercial, you knew how to make money out of it, right?
Yeah, and I mean the biggest thing. So right now with our business, we're a very, very small business, but you know, I'd look now for, you know, competency in the employees. It's a kind of it's a no-brainer really for any job. You need to be competent to the job. After that, professionalism. You know, can be competent, but be a bit of a scallywag. You know, let's be professional in what you do and in relationships that you build. And some industries that's not required, including ours, to be honest. But then passion. So I think in my business now, passion trumps all those things. If someone really cares about the joint, really cares about what you're doing, I don't care about other stuff. You know, in sports, we're lucky because you don't need to be competent to learn things really quickly. Like in sport, everybody comes to us is passionate. If you're on the terraces, you're passionate. If you're selling Britannica, you know, books, right, we need to be competent, organized, professional. I don't really care that you're not passionate about the product, my friend. Whereas with us, that goes a really, really long way. And I think that when I'm in the sports, it's that combination. Like I am competent, I am professional, but like I really care about what I do, and I think people get that when they see what I do, and that applies to the business, but also if you're talking to the fans, if you're talking to the sponsors, if you're talking, you know, whatever it is, it's just you really care about what you're doing. I forgot what the question was, but that's where I went with it.
Yeah, no, I know. I was curious to know because you came in, obviously you had a Fix-It job to do, and then what did the business look like, or the club look like, from when you came in to when you exited, and why did you leave the Edinburgh? So it's just interesting to find that out.
Yeah. So it was just a mess. So the staff hadn't been looked after. There was very few people left.
Yeah.
The players were just in a bit of a fuddle. I think maybe the wages hadn't been paid. I can't even remember.
Wow.
But it was literally just a reboot. Let's just start again. So Scottish Rugby invested in making that happen. Off the pitch, putting in place some systems that people hadn't, you know, build in the community, actually talk to people, listen to what the feedback is. It's a tough place at the time because they play in Murrayfield and 3,000 people in a massive stadium.
Yeah, what's the capacity of Murrayfield?
65,000.
Blimey.
It's never going to be great. Now they've got a stadium, and that was always the number one thing, is fun a stadium. We got like 10,000 people to big games. Myself and Ian, the guy who was at Glasgow, I was in Thailand with him recently. We had this concept to launch something called the 1872 Cup, which was Edinburgh against Glasgow. And at the time, the people running the business were like, it won't work. Well, if it'll work, let's do one at the start of the season, one at the end of the season. We're like, no, just do it at Christmas. Put them two together. Let people get passionate about this thing.
Yeah.
And now, like those games, there's 45,000 people. And like he called me over Christmas. He's like, no one will know, but that was our thing back in the day.
It's the Celtic Rangers. You know, you just piggybacked on that, right?
Yeah, just got to beat Glasgow.
Yeah.
You know, while I was there, we lost every single one, I think.
Yeah.
We actually finished above Glasgow, but lost every single one, I think. And then the coach was a big thing. So I actually tried to recruit Tony Ray, who was my guy at the Broncos, even though he was a rugby league fan. I was like, mate, you'll organise professional systems, and he would have got the job. Apart from near the end, Andy Robinson, who was the England coach, came available, and Scotland wanted this guy. And he's a very, very competent guy. So we're fortunate that Andy came, and he took the team and went on this journey with him, and we ended up finished second in the Magners League at the time, which for the club size of our club was was
Phenomenal.
really, really, really impressive. And that helped drive, for football teams, the rugby football teams doing well. That's your number one thing. You put your systems in place anyway. Just looked after the staff a bit more, got a couple of sponsors on board. And at the end, when I left, like I said, the year later, they were in the semi-finals of the Heineken Cup.
Yeah.
They've been on this journey that, didn't fix the stadiums. They did have that stadium issue, and the people since. There is a stadium now, and I think they sell out a lot of their games. Glasgow have been better on the pitch, but that's not really the CEO's job to agree. You're there to help the coach and the director of rugby. Ultimately, it's your responsibility, but sports teams now have a lot of staff. So the CEO manages.
What's a typical tenure of a CEO in sports clubs, though?
Yeah, it's difficult to say typical now. It's a career now.
It doesn't seem to be very long, though, from what I can see. You've done how long were you at the Broncos for?
I was there for maybe 9-10 years.
9-10 years. And Edinburgh?
4 years.
4 years. Yeah. And you left Edinburgh on your terms?
I left just because my missus... We were talking
again. This is a common theme with you, by the way. You made some bold decisions. You're quite influenced by people that you care about and decisions that you make.
Yeah, we didn't want a family. We weren't having a family, but we just had this conversation because she's from the States.
Yeah,
if we're gonna have a family, what should we do? And it's literally the truth. I was getting dressed for work, put on a t-shirt, put on a shirt. It's like, Steph, I don't want to bring a family up in this cold weather. Scotland is brutal. If you're not working, it's an amazing place because you don't have to go outside. But if you're working, like for 6 months of the year, you get up, it's dark, you go to work, it's dark, you come home, it's dark, it's cold. The game's so freezing. I was like, we could live in California because I can get a green card. And for someone like me, where the ultimate dream in sports is America is number one by a mile.
Yeah.
Business of sports is number one by a mile. Maybe some people are not the actual sport, but for business, they crush everybody. I was like, well, let's do it. Let's do that. Because if we're going to make a decision for the family, that's where we should have the family. And I love that opportunity. So we just, okay, let's do that. We traveled for a year before we get there.
Where did you go?
We went to basically the typical 20-year-old Southeast Asia, Australia, New Zealand. Spent a bit of time in America with her family. And then I got to get a green card.
So how old are you at this point? Sorry.
This was 2008. I was we left when I was 40. We left after my 40th birthday.
Yeah.
So we traveled for years. I had my 40th birthday.
So you're pretty young, like CEO,
When I was at the Broncos, I was like, I don't know how old I was, 32 or something. Going to the meetings with the boardroom of the Super League, and there's all these old men with...
Yeah.
Who's this young guy?
And it was a very challenging thing for me because I was the only person from the South. I was the person who was 20 years younger than everybody else.
Yeah.
And my club was the basket case.
Yeah.
I was fortunate that some really good people helped. They probably wanted our vote. I don't know, but they helped and they cared about the sport. So some good people who, they're not my friends now, but
supported you,
supported us. And I've stayed in touch, and if I called them up now, they'd be
be all right.
Thanks, thanks, Nick.
So you've been working you've been working full on in pretty high powered jobs. CEO of two big sports clubs. So I guess when you decided to move to America, you wanted some time out and travelled. Then I guess you got to get a green card. That's not an easy thing to do,
Yeah. So it takes 9 to 12 months. I started the process. I was like, well, while I'm here,
why does it take that long?
Well, America's crazy. Like you can still write paper checks. You could, I'd go to the store with my father-in-law's checkbook and say, here you go. And I'm like, what? This doesn't feel like the most modern country in the world. So bureaucracy there is crazy. It was going to take a long time, but I could get myself fit. I played cricket for a summer with the local team. I started playing hockey again. My wife was working. She got a decent job. It was a nice life. And I was just networking, doing that thing, which was relatively new then.
You couldn't work. You weren't legally allowed to.
I wasn't allowed to work, and I didn't want to run that risk of trying to. It was just going to be a tough grind. No problem. You'll probably have to take 2 or 3 steps back because my CV wasn't as relevant in that part of the world. And then just a friend of mine called me up and said, Nick, I've got a friend of his who is an advisor to the board of the Oman Football Association. they've currently paying a number of consultants to do a job that you probably could do on your own and save them a lot of money and have a permanent resource. And I've recommended you to them. I sat down. My best friend from college had lived in Oman in the 90s, so I knew what it was. I knew it was a nice place. So I sat. She'll always support what I do. You know, we're very fortunate. So I sat there, family down. It's a funny time because we sat down. I made a presentation about moving to the Middle East. And as soon as I put the first slide up, we're moving to Muscat. And on the map around Muscat, for some unhappy reason, it was just Somalia, Iran, Afghanistan, all these places that in their American brains, they were like, what the hell are you doing in Iraq? So they were like, what? And no one I know Oman, but they didn't know Oman. You say Oman, it's Amman.
Yeah.
So they were like, what do you know? But, so moved to Oman.
So you did a good sales job on the presentation then?
To them, they let me go.
I
left. It's crazy. We at the time they wanted me to get there. They said, no, we need you to start this day. I'm like, I've got a family holiday. Can I just finish the family holiday? No, we need you there. We need you there. We need you there. We need you there. I'm like, come on, man, really? But anyway, I was in Las Vegas for a family holiday. I had to leave. I flew to New York, got off the plane in New York, went to my car to get the stuff that I'd left in the car park to move to Oman, got back on the plane in New York, flew to wherever. It was like a 32-hour journey. On the way, I'd message the people saying, look, is anybody picking me up? Is there a hotel? What's happening when I arrive? Didn't get an answer. I was like, there must be. Got to the airport, and there actually had been, but they hadn't told me. And the guy who was meeting me there was sat in the corner of the airport on his phone, not meeting me. So when I got there, I had no money, no clue where I was going, put my card in the machine, machine ate my card. I'm like, this has really not been a good move, having left Las Vegas. And I mean, the old Muscat airport was about the size
I've been
of this,
there.
with cattle in it.
Yeah.
I was like, what? And I ended up paying a taxi driver to take me to a random hotel that I never ever found after 10 years in Muscat. I'd never find it again. I paid the hotel guy to give me cash to give the taxi driver so I could stay in the hotel that night. Sent a stroppy email to the guy saying, what the hell, man? I've just traveled 40 hours of, And, they had got a taxi and they had got a hotel. They just hadn't told me about it. And that kind of sums up the approach to life over there.
Yeah.
And my missus turned up like two months later.
Yeah. So the job that you got offered was to be what?
It was the commercial director. I think probably in the end I was like the sort of deputy general secretary. There's, I was. It's not rude to say I was the most competent person there. They employed a coach, Paul Le Guen, who was very, very good. One of the world's best coaches. They had a director of football, but in the business, I'm happy to say I was the most competent person there. I had lots of experience. I'd done everything. So I just used to get dragged into all sorts of things. I was walking past a room one day and I heard someone say, well, we're going to do this for the gym. And I looked in and they had this big sort of plush, deep carpet. And I'm like, not my thing, but guys, let's not put plush carpet in the gym. Like, really? What should we do? And I'm like, let's get rubberized, okay, you're in charge of the gym. Oh, and literally I designed the gym. So, probably like a deputy general secretary, but the responsibility was to modernize, commercialize, and help them come into the modern way so that you make more money, build. I used to manage the relationship with FIFA to generate the revenues, find sponsors. We started selling tickets while I was there. We launched a professional league, the Oman Professional League. And the ideas were really good. The guy at the top, the chairman, had some really good ideas. He's very knowledgeable in the industry. Supported by government, and Oman regionally is pretty, it's the second biggest local population. They love their sports. We were one year, maybe like 5 minutes to go. We were going to go to the playoff to get to the World Cup. And then Jordan equalised against Australia and it didn't happen. You still had to win the playoff. Yeah. But you're one game from the World Cup. Yeah. Oman played in the playoff for the Olympics 2012. So we came to the UK. We played against Senegal, and if we'd beaten Senegal, we would have qualified for the Olympics. Only 16 teams qualified for the Olympics in football. So that was an amazing close. Yeah. So we had a couple of close shaves. I really enjoyed working there. It's a great country to live in. But government is a frustrating place to work. Scottish rugby is government. Frustrating, but the Middle East governments are.
Do you think that the difference was obviously everything was? Sounds like you moved from the US, from these established kind of historical rugby. Let's put the Broncos to one side, but in the Scottish Rugby Union is 100 years old, or the big association steeped in history. Broncos, you kind of had that taste of startup life, and your career was kind of, I suppose, propelled because of that.
Yeah,
you've kind of gone back into startup mode, but with government funding, right?
Yeah, I mean, when I got there, literally, it was a four-story building. I was the only person on floor 2, maybe. And it's about 4 times as big as this room, maybe 10 times as big as this room. And there was a dividers like this. And my chair was here facing 2 walls. And I'm like, what is this all about? This is just weird. Literally, it was starting from almost nothing to build events, commercial revenue, brand. Like, they launched a new brand for the association. They launched the Premier League. You're working with 47 clubs, all who had vested interests. Some of whom want to professionalize. Some they want to literally oust the board. There was one. We used to have multiple annual general meetings a year. It's an annual general meeting. There's one.
Yeah.
There was so many, and the last 7 or 8 hours, there'd be people arguing. There's no English. There's a translation, so I'm just sat there. And there was one that was 43 points of order. It was a emergency annual general meeting. Point 2 was the commercial director needs to be sacked. Point 6 was Nic Cartwright needs to be removed. It was like 4 or 5 specifically on me, and I'm like, what have I got to do with any of this?
Yeah,
and I think
all politics.
It was just there's been money being spent on overseas staff. And it's funny, we got literally, it started, and it was on a Sunday or a Saturday weekend. It was the other weekend. My missus is, what's going on? This is going to be a long time. Started at 11 o'clock in the morning, by about 7 o'clock at night, but I hadn't even got to my second point. So point 5 of 43 was still happening. And then about midnight, it was maybe 11 out of 43, and everybody went, it's getting late. Can we just agree on everything? Okay, go home. And you're like, this is just, just weird bureaucracy. It's just all politics, 100% politics, relationships. The chairman was very good at managing the politics. He did really well to try and force some of these things through because, you got a load of people who don't want to change. They just want to protect. If people want people to like them, and you make changes around charging tickets, everybody doesn't like you because you're charging tickets, changing the way things happen. They don't like you. So lots of club owners would be like, well, my staff won't like me, so get rid of this. So, and some of the things he changed, and then he moved on. So then they changed again. And as soon as he left, I was like, I can't cope with the lethargy of everything else. So I said to Steph, we're going to have to leave because it's a great life. I love Oman. Oman's amazing, and my life was great. But just work is important. So when he left, it was. I would not have been able to survive. So I decided we need to go.
Understood.
Yeah.
Understood. So you've got quite a high appetite for risk, though, is what I'm learning about you.
Yeah, it seems that way.
Yeah, you seem surprised by that. But you've at 40 years old, you quit your job.
Yeah.
Because it was too cold, and you moved to America to go and get a green card.
Yeah.
You moved, you quit your probably pretty well paid accountancy job and went and lived in Australia. You've taken a job with a startup. Could be seeing a very quirky idea in London to build this rugby league business, and it's worked out well for you. You've then pitched to your family, I'm going to move to the other side of the world, taken a 40-hour flight, don't know who's going to pick you up, and walked into, by the sounds of it, is opportunity but total chaos as well. Where's this appetite for risk come from?
It's a weird one, because I think a lot of people will say that I can be, whatever the word is, dangerous with decision making. But I think at my core, I'm a very, very structured, calm, organized person.
Well, it's being sat opposite you. You give off an air of calmness. To be honest with you, there is you come, but behind that, there is this fierce risk appetite. Obviously,
I don't know where that's come from. To be honest, it's
your mum, perhaps.
Yeah, maybe,
because the way you told us the story was mum went from making 20 pots of jam at home to getting a call from Macy's. That's a big deal.
Yeah. And I think, in my personal life, and then I don't deliberately compartmentalize, but like when my approach to businesses, let's just be honorable, straight, calm, have a plan, follow the plan. By all means, the plan can include, let's be crazy at times, provided it doesn't hurt. We've got to keep going that way. Get organization is really important to running a business. But it's definitely not a deliberate decision to be.
Well, clearly not. But there's a pattern, right? We can see there's a pattern, and it's so I'm gonna. It's clear from obviously you now having your own successful business. This opportunity in Oman opened your eyes to what many people that I've met who are entrepreneurs in the Middle East, they had it in their veins, and they arrive into the region and they see how they can transfer what they've learned elsewhere and put that professionalism into the land of opportunity. Right.
Yeah.
So, and by the sounds of it, you're basically, you had that professionalism, you had the background, people were relying on you.
Yeah.
What happened in that period in Oman for you to want to leave? I'm quite interested in that.
Yeah.
And then we'll talk about where you are now.
Yeah, something just popped in my brain now. So when I was, and I'm still an accountant, your name gets in the papers. This is when people used to read newspapers.
Yeah.
And recruitment consultants was seeing Nic Cartwright, Ernst & Young. So they call it Ernst & Young, Nic Cartwright. And so people were selling me financial products. I've never ever planned that. But eventually I met this lady and we became friends. And just at one time, she was like, what do you want to do? And I was like, because I don't think I've ever planned it. Like I plan everything to a degree, but a lot of this stuff I just, I don't. But she was like, what do you want to be? And my sport is boxing. I love boxing. I'm like, my ultimate goal is that I'd love to be a sports promoter who does boxing. And that's like the sharkiest business on the planet.
Yeah.
Like it's not going to happen, but that's what I want. Okay, thanks, Nick. And you move on. And it's like, it's not something I've never been like, my next job is going to be this. Because literally every job I had, it's like you said, I moved because of personal reasons.
Yeah.
So the Broncos, I would probably still be there if I hadn't left.
Yeah.
And then the Edinburgh, if it wasn't for X, I probably would still be there.
But there's not a lot of people that will go, you know what? Yeah. First of all, they'll move for those personal reasons, and then they'll do it without another job.
Yeah.
And you've been quite comfortable doing that. That's an appetite for risk there.
Yeah. I don't really care about the comfort stuffs in life, cash. Like I've never chased cash. I've never ever done that deliberately, or I don't know, but it's my friends will tell me I'm really, really bad with money. I'm pretty good with the business money, but I just too risky with my own cash probably. So that's never been the decision maker. Is you need a career, you need to solve this. And I do often think I've been really lucky because like things that could have taken a worse turn if it hadn't happened. But you create your own luck, and obviously I'm doing something right, so it's But like I definitely haven't planned that.
Yeah.
The only thing I've probably planned is this, is this current job.
Yeah.
Because when left the OFA with the chairman, we set up a business there that's pretty similar to my current business. And it just became clear to me that the business would be better if I was able to make all the decisions. Just because of, politics, the culture of Oman. And then COVID was a big thing, pushed the hand. It's probably the first time I've backed myself to make, I'm in charge.
COVID kind of forced your hand in many ways.
To a degree.
Yeah.
Like it killed the business in Oman because we couldn't do events. And it felt like the appetite to make this business work had gone.
Yeah.
I guess fairly because it was going to cost a lot of money.
Yeah.
But it just, the writing was on the wall.
Well, let's join the dots though. So you go on the Oman Football Association, right? And then you've obviously got quite connected at government level as a result of being in that, yeah? And so you've met the chair, you and the chairman have decided there's a wider opportunity in sports outside of football and looking at sports events in Oman, right?
Yeah, for Oman, he was very good at what he does.
Yeah.
I'm not being rude there. I'm saying he was higher because Oman is not like it's UAE, KSA, Qatar, whereas he was higher in the world of sports than many Qatar. He was really good at what he does. Very well respected. He was, he was a driving force in the region. He came up with some really cool ideas that for many reasons didn't actually happen in the region. And just when he was leaving, I just said to him, look, you've got so many cool things. You love sports. let's keep going. Let's keep doing it. Let's do it commercially. We don't have to worry about the politics anymore. Let's set up a sports agency. The Middle East is, then and even more so now, is a powerhouse on everything. I was watching the World Cricket, which is not part of this nation, this region's interest.
Yeah.
Mostly, and it's like the only brand supporting the World Cricket is Soba, Emirates, Qatar Airways, Aramco. They power all of world sports. So this region is so powerful. And Oman, because of its unique position, at the time there was the blockade with Qatar and the rest of the world. It's like, you guys, we can be good.
Yeah.
So we had the head office in Muscat. We opened an office up in Dubai. We had an office in Abu Dhabi, and we're about to open an office in Doha. And COVID just killed the business. The business has just started to make a success, had some good deals with some really big brands. I think it probably would have.
And what were you going to do?
We were doing mass participation events like we do now, but we also did deals with Qatari companies around the World Cup to invest into Omani sport. And the plan was to take that model to, government spend a lot of money on sports.
Yeah.
A lot of it is wasted, being honest. And to try and kind of join the dots because Sai Khaled had some really, you need the local link is so important. No matter how good you are as an expat, the nationality is always going to trump it if it needs to. So he was so good at that and building those relationships. So it was to take the business and say, look, we're a little Oman. We'll help you. We're not going to fight with Qatar or UAE. We can help you. So the main goal was to try and help build this revenue with governments to use the power of sports for education, for health, for fighting obesity, for promoting, and also for trying to get better value from these deals that they do. Lots of governments spend way too much money doing things with international brands. We wanted to be like, we're the only sports agency from the region. The reality is we're the only ones that really care about the region because we're from here. There is others, but we wanted to be the best from the region to compete with, dare I say, IMG, a massive organization, really good at what they do. But if you push the corporate DNA, what they care about is getting the money back to New York. Whereas we wanted to eventually compete with them at that high level. We're not going to try and take the Formula One then. But that was the idea behind the business. And like I said, COVID was a big factor in. I'm not saying it would have worked without COVID, but it was starting to get there. And I just, COVID killed it, slowed everything down. And I just, probably the writing was on the wall for me in terms of I was well paid to run that business. And I was like, Steph, we probably need to look at different options. We already had stuff happening here already. We'd already set up an office in Dubai. And when that business scaled back a little bit, we just took on the stuff that was working here, agreed with them to take on different elements of the business and kept doing what we were doing. We'd already generated some relationship with government, kept those relationships and have nurtured those since.
So you were able to literally take parts of the business that you'd set up, and because of COVID, you came to an agreement with your co-founder that you were going to leave to do your own thing. And that's the business that you have now. You already had the license registration set up in the UAE?
Yeah, I don't know if we agreed that would happen, but we agreed that I would leave.
Yeah.
And I knew what I was already doing and whether or not they knew exactly what I was going to do.
But you were able to take on the business in the UAE?
It was just, it was the summer, I was lucky. They stopped doing what they were doing, so I'll do it then. They released, so we used Tough Mudder was done by Sabco, the company, and then Tough Mudder became done by Cab. No one really knew what had changed. It was the same people doing the same thing. It just we were.
But you were going to so everyone who's listening and watching this understands. So the events that you had in your previous business, Tough Mudder was one of them, right? What else were you doing?
We did a football tournament, international football tournament with big brands like Man City and stuff. We did youth. We did work with the Oman Ministry of Education to help drive community sports. We worked on when I was leaving, they just got the Muscat Marathon, which has done really well.
Yeah.
We had to deal with Qatar Airways. We worked with Qatar 22 for the World Cup tickets. Yeah, but pretty much it was like literally we'll do anything in sports. We did a few player deals, player agency deals. It was literally the commercialization of sports in Oman. We were the biggest by a mile in the region. We were maybe one of the biggest local ones. Yeah. And then, some of the deals we did with Aspire, Qatar Airways, Qatar Foundation, Qatar 22, Jeep in the UAE, Fujairah, Wrestle came, Oman came, Abu Dhabi government. We're doing pretty well.
But how did you? So you parked all of them, but you were able to leave and the business, the name. Is there a reason? So any reason why? What's the story?
Cab Sports is so I can't point to it because I'm wearing the wrong T-shirt. But C is my son Cooper.
Yeah.
A is the word and B is Duncan, who's one of the business partners' son. So it's Cooper and Brandon Sports.
Okay. And you'd already set that up in the UAE, right?
Yeah. So it was just, I needed a company, a vehicle to do whatever at the time. So way before I'd left Sabco, and this is before I'd even thought about leaving, I just, it's always good to have a business, maybe get another visa.
Okay. It's like a backup plan.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so when you came to your own business, how did you arrange to take Tough Mudder with you and nothing else?
From memory, that was maybe one of the reasons why they'd been, I think Sabco, the cost of keeping business was
they didn't want it. Yeah.
And I think maybe they just wanted out. So, I knew my relationship was with Tough Mudder. Tough Mudder didn't know the Sabco owners really.
Yeah.
So they did an agreement. I then did an agreement. And, we could see that was, if you're starting a new business, which is what we did. However, we had 5 or 6 events ready, contracts with governments ready.
Yeah.
The brand we were using, no one knew it was a new business. So it wasn't really a new business. It was.
And that's fascinating, Nick, because again, I talk to a lot of entrepreneurs and obviously I've set my own business up as well. And most people don't have, because of the career trajectory you've had, because of the opportunity you had, you were able in essence to set up your own business with 5 events or, 5 events, cash generating opportunities. So you kind of had a great platform to launch the business with, right?
Yeah.
Was it? I mean, does that mean you could be profitable straight away?
So with this, we've been going 3 years. Year one was a cat fight to keep the doors open,
right?
Because cash, as a small business, cash is the number one issue. It's the number 1 to 10 issue. So it was a real battle to keep the doors moving.
Even with those events launching with him, it was
just because the way that the sports industry is, summer is dead, winter is busy.
Okay,
you're reliant on number of factors. Government payment terms is one of them.
Yeah,
and also it was just you don't have a big corporation behind you.
Yeah,
the ups and downs, you feel them. There's not just this flatness.
Yeah.
So we knew we were going to do it, but it was a real big challenge. And then year one established, we managed to maintain the government relationship. So there's a bit more clarity, which has been this season just gone. So this season's been, we'll end the season in a really good place.
Okay.
And then the goal now is moving into next season is that we're in a good place now. So we started last season having just had a cat fight of a year. So the year was challenging, whereas this year we'll end the season in a good place, provided we can lock these things away. This is the first time I think about a new season where you're like, right, we could really do some cool stuff.
Yeah.
And we're going to start doing some cool stuff that maybe will lose us some money.
Okay.
Maybe it's a bit risky to go back to that. If I wanted just to bank the money, or just, let's just not do that cool stuff.
Yeah.
But we're in a place now to start doing some good stuff.
But let's talk about what you do, right? So obviously you've had your career to date in rugby and football, and that seemed, and then you've moved into wider events with governments. You've then had Tough Mudder, and why have you zoned in on Tough Mudder? What do you see as the opportunity there?
It was inspired by doing an obstacle course racing OCR event.
Yeah,
really enjoyed it. Could see it's like whatever the word jungle gym is. Playground. It's like playground for adults.
Yeah.
I do a lot of triathlon myself, and it's it's dull.
Yeah.
It's functional. It's enjoyable, but it's.
But the Ironman brand is phenomenal in that space. Yeah.
But like obstacle course racing is just a lot. It's just fun. It's very good for fitness, but it's just fun. I enjoyed it. So that's why we took the Tough Mudder on, and then we've just been inspired by the brand. We we're inspired by the sport.
You sort of hit the right product at the right time, by the sounds of it.
Yeah.
You know, because it's, you know, I've seen Spartan and Tough Mudder. They're popular in High Rocks now. So they're very popular brands that people and you know, the world, health and wellness, and people seem to be much more interested in getting fit than ever before.
Yeah.
But there was so if you were to describe it to people who weren't from the region who are watching this, what did the landscape look like when you had Tough Mudder, and what OCR events were there going on?
So back a few years ago, Spartan is the number one brand in the world. They started off as American. Tough Mudder was their competition, and they're British, but they became American because you need to grow. And then I think they were having financial problems anyway, but during COVID, you know, their businesses really suffered. Like mass participation events were killed. You know, you couldn't outdoor even. So they suffered, and they ended up merging. Not even merging. Tough Mudder was taken over by Spartan. So our position went from, there was someone doing Spartan, which was the competing brand, against us doing the Tough Mudder brand, becoming, we weren't even allowed to mention the word Spartan, to now we're best buddies. At the time, our approach was, well, we want them to do well because it's the sport, and there's definitely not enough of the sport. So we'll do well, you'll do well, we'll do well. The rising tides for everybody. That wasn't, you know, necessarily their opinion. They merged, and you know, that product that we were loving and doing and delivering and generating government revenue and generating sponsors, the relationship with the head office was never as it should be. We felt that they did their business for them. You know, the same thing as the international versus the local. They wanted to generate money. They didn't really care that. The example I use all the time was that everybody, when they do an event here, they want a medal. Tough Mudder was a headband. I want a medal. Why can't we have medals? And they're like, guys, please just let us do medals. You know, it doesn't really matter. Who cares if in America we're doing headbands here? They just want, no. We're like, just listen to the region, you know? So we were even, you know, years before we started doing everything, we already had this idea that we could do our own thing. Having lived in it for 15 years, having seen, you know, the people from this region, they love where they're from. Probably more so than any other place I've been in the world. They're just so proud of where they're from. From England and from America, where my families are from, there's a lot of ignorance around this part of the world. You know, you read the newspapers and it's like, there's nothing like what it is here. Yeah. And when you live here, you realize they care so much about where they're from. When I was in Oman, how I describe it to my friends back in England is like, in Oman and UAE, they use the resource of the country, that oil, whatever it is, to look after their people. In England, the resource is the people. You know, whether the British government care about the people in Britain, yes, that's definitely not. But here, they definitely care about their people. Less so the expats, but I do feel that they care. But that's irrelevant to our business. It was like combining all this together. They care about local. Let's be local. Let's do our own local brand. They care about the population. They care about health. So let's do stuff that drives that. And Tough Mudder just, you know, they don't care. And then there was this, you know, the CEO made some silly comments around Palestine that were very, very, you know, may have worked for him, but definitely didn't work here for the brand.
Yes.
So we were like in good consciousness. We work with governments. We can't. You know, even though it's not our opinion, we can't follow this.
Can't be seen to be associated.
Yeah, so we're like, we have this plan to do our own thing. We have to do it now. So we engaged with all our government contracts, said, look, we're going to move to a new brand. We want to focus on the region. We want to invest more in the local community. We can't do that with this. If we change, I know we're losing an international brand. Will you be happy? And 100% immediately, bang, bang, bang. Yes, perfect, Nick. Love it. Thank you very much. You know, great. So we, you know, the general public have no clue what this brand is. So that's, you know, sponsors don't know what this is. But the business is all about, you know, we're from the region. We want to stay in the region. We'd have no plans to leave the region. We want to work in the region. We want to, you know, we would love to take our region to the world. Yeah. So, you know, let's go for it. And then that was this 3-year journey. The year one where people had, you know.
But what was the thinking behind the name?
We definitely wanted it to be local, so Arabian. And then, yeah, I mean, iterations, you know, the sport is, you know, Spartan, Tough Mudder. It's a challenge. You know, it's a tough fight. There's a lot of history in the region. You know, it's thousands of years of really tough people. The population now isn't seen as good fighters, but they're very strong people, proud. So, we can't even remember where it came from eventually. But it was Warrior. Actually, someone even before we went live with whatever you do, patented the words Arabian Warrior. Somebody else put an event out called Warriors of Arabia, and we're like, okay, they've had the same idea as this. I mean, that doesn't happen anymore. It's gone now. So I can't remember where it happened, but it was over a number of years. We patented it even before these comments were made by the Tough Mudder people.
So you already had Arabian Warrior?
Yeah. And we're like,
well, you just had it in your pocket thinking, I'm going to use this? Okay.
Yeah, we had the brand design, and then this happened. Then we saw, Warriors Arabia? And if they were going to fight with us, we're like, well, we've got this patent 2 years ago. And they didn't need it because that didn't work. And, we're very strong.
And so the derogatory comments were made, and that was your opportunity to drop that. Yeah. You understood how to do the event, but you wanted to localize it, play the tune to what a lot of your government backers are clearly invested in sport. Yep. They bought into that, and then Arabian Warrior was born.
Yeah.
But taking everything that you'd learned from Tough Mudder, but just localizing everything.
And making the changes that the two brands. Spartan is, I guess, more for competition.
Are they still here? Remind me, they're in.
So when those comments were made, the license holder, he also stopped.
Yeah.
But Spartan head office, they know this part of the world is important. The world champions, one of their world championships, they have multiple world championships, but their world one takes place in Abu Dhabi, supported by the government.
Yeah.
So they were still here, and they've now got a new license holder. We don't know them, but I hope it goes well because it's a sport.
Yeah.
But
there was no problems with them when the cord was cut.
Yeah, I mean they with us.
Yeah.
No, we just said, look, this is they will be. It wasn't. We weren't honest with what we did. We didn't say we're going to do our own thing.
Yeah.
We made sure that there was no covenant in place to stop us from doing.
Gotcha. Yeah.
They said to us, we're going to make you can't do OCR. And we're like, no, you're not. There's nothing.
They don't own the rights to OCR, right?
Like the contract that we had signed didn't prevent us from doing it. I mean, that was an error on their behalf. They should have done that, but they didn't. So
you were able to set up your own brand.
Yeah.
An exit once the contracting agreement had ended.
Yeah.
What a great opportunity.
And we had all the CapEx already.
Yeah.
We had the database.
Of course.
The contacts.
You're just able to take it on with your own brand.
Yeah.
Fantastic idea.
Yeah.
And then, so how's it gone? Like, tell us, what does that look like now then?
So year two has been, I'd say year one of Tough Mudder was our first year of Cab Sports.
Last year with them.
Last year with them.
And then year two, own brand. Yeah.
Yeah, which was this year. We've launched a new brand. And it's for the company, we're probably about 4 or 5 out of 10. Year one was like 2 out of 10.
Yeah.
Panic Stations which was the first year of operation. This second year of Cab, first year of Arabian Warrior, I'd say maybe 5 or 6 out of 10, 4 or 5 in terms of happiness with processes. And it's been a very stressful year for me, just because of various, but the brand itself, we're going to end the season in a really good place. So I want to look into next season. And that was the only real goal was we're launching a new brand. We need to end well, be happy at the end. And there'll be ups and downs, and, no one had ever heard of it.
Yeah.
We're not a big organization. We don't have massive marketing budgets.
No one knows the logos, anything like that.
It's going to be all brand new.
Yeah.
But we're fortunate that we have good relationships, good reputation in the market, know what we're doing. So let's do it.
Was it hard shifting tickets when no one knew the name of the brand?
Yeah. Our numbers for this have been less than for Tough Mudder.
Because everyone knew that brand. Yeah.
Yeah. But as we end in the season, I think we're going to end the season with a couple of wins, as in better.
And the season being the same event, but in multiple different locations.
Yeah.
So how many locations have you got now?
So for next year, which I'll talk about, but is more positive, we will have probably 6 events in Saudi Arabia and maybe 6 events in the UAE.
Wow. That's a lot.
Yeah. It's too many.
Yeah.
Certainly for the ops guys, they're like, you're making us.
And you're limited in when you can do it because of the heat.
Yeah, we do it September to April.
Yeah.
We've got an event in May this year in Al Ula in Saudi Arabia, which is going to be really hot, but it's a challenge. It's a really cool event. So we look after people, but it's a challenging time to do an event. But yeah, you can't really there's places in like Salalah or the south of Saudi Arabia where we may do events in the summer. at the end of this year, this next season, we'll start thinking about what do we do indoors. And that doesn't have to be Arabian Warrior, maybe it's something else. But for the next season, we'll do 10 to 11, 12. We're talking to Qatar, talking to Bahrain. We may do those places as well if we can get organised in time. But we've definitely got enough to do. Everybody's pretty happy now. Like we started last year with no images about Arabian Warrior. Now, like all our events have been really well supported.
Yeah.
People are really happy with what we're doing. The changes we made versus we've kept the Tough Mudder stuff that was good. We've added the stuff from Spartan that's good. We've added our own stuff that is just from the region. So it's it's a fun sport. It's a fun thing to do. It is challenging, can be hard. We say to people, if it's too hard, just walk past the obstacle. Yeah. It's a 5K run. Just do a 5K run.
Yeah.
And you can challenge vertigo, claustrophobia, fear of water, smoke, electricity. It's lots of people like end and go, thank you so much for pushing me out of my comfort zone, because it's a really fun sport. Yeah. But it's called obstacle.
It's tough.
Yeah. It's not called whatever. I don't know.
So as Cabgo, so as your business holding group, like what you're going to be known as, is obstacle course racing going to be the niche that you're staying in? Because you've obviously got this background in other events, you've got this background in football, rugby. Yeah. What's your vision for the business? Is it to continue to niche out in OCR, or is it to go into other areas as well?
It'll definitely change, because this year's been too stressful. So right now I'm like, let's just take it easy. Yeah. But as soon as it's easy,
but that's not in your nature. I think we all know that as well. The story you just
I think for OCR, that's definitely the focus, and we've got big ambitions to do a really good job in that.
And to broaden the amount of events you do across the region.
Yeah. And even maybe taking Arabian Warrior to, we've had interest from India, Thailand, Egypt.
Wow. Even with the name Arabian Warrior.
Yeah, we've talked, would we make it Asian? Would we make it African? Yeah. Or would we work with our partners here to say, look, this, rather than buying these brands into Tough Mudder, you're paying Tough Mudder to come in and do an event. Let's do our own thing. Let's go to the world and say, Do
you own African Warrior and Asian Warrior?
We do, yeah.
Yeah, you do.
Yeah.
Okay.
So we'll see. But once that is working, the team can do that, then I'll be either, just go and get fit and drink cocktails on the beach, or
doesn't sound like that's
or I really would like. It'd be good to do, business-wise, football is key here. Yeah, and I think there's lots of scope to do some stuff in football using the same approach. Don't necessarily chase the cash. Work for the community. But maybe how long ago? Well, I was still at Sabco. I actually had a signed contract from Anthony Joshua's team to come and do a fight in the region.
Wow.
And what's happened is this was before the Riyadh season. Yeah. Now it's booming. Yeah. This was maybe 6 years ago. There was a signed contract from his team to come and fight, and as yet unknown fighter contracts in place with, from a ego point of view, I'd love to do something in boxing. Yeah. But it's like that ship's probably sailed. It's a different landscape now, and it's not my industry. Yeah. And I'm probably not the Sharky type of person that exists in that sport. But I don't know that sport. So okay. We had interest last year with one of our partners to do the Premier League darts. Yeah. I mean, my preference would be once we've established Arabian Warriors, working for the community would be, let's just find more of the same. We launched a brand last year, which was called Women's Epic, which was trail running for women. I'd like to find more stuff that...
So create your own brands and events, then monetize and commercialize
from the region as well.
From the region. Yeah. So I'm curious, and this might be useful for anyone looking to get into sports. What sort of margins do these events run at? I mean, how difficult is it to make money out of them?
It wouldn't work not here.
Really?
It wouldn't work not here. The disadvantage of being here is the population is really small. Yeah. Not been rude, relatively uneducated about what sports is doing. If you're living in Dubai, so our event last year in Dubai, I can't remember the number. This is a made up number, but it's indicative. Like we worked out, there was like 40 different sporting events that people could have done that weekend competing against us. Yeah. So Dubai is the only place where we do events without government support because you can generate a good audience. I forgot the question.
No, I'm just curious what the sort of margins are in
margins,
events.
yeah.
Like,
It's tough.
it sounds very tough. Like,
It's tough.
you know,
without governments, we wouldn't be able to do it.
right.
We wouldn't be able to do it.
So I'm glad you said that. So actually what's enabled it to be a success is that your time in Oman, where you understood the way the government setup works and you're kind of understanding that, you managed to bring that regional knowledge along with your sort of long career in sports. You fuse the two together, and that's kind of why it works, right?
Yeah.
And that is really interesting for a lot of people. You know, one of the main reasons I do this podcast as well is for people to understand the journey entrepreneurs go through, and it doesn't happen overnight. And actually, the reason your business is a success is because you've had a long career in sports, and then you've managed to fuse bits and pieces from everything you've discussed, from everything you've mentioned in this podcast so far. It feels like they've come together very well for your business now, and why it's working as a success, because you're able to pull from different parts, right? And that's, you've kind of had the startup experience, you've had the corporate experience, you've had working with governments, you've had the wacky experience in Oman that's kind of brought you into this. That's kind of helps you understand. And now you know actually that because people are so proud of the region, that creating your own brand and building that out, that's going to be the way to grow and monetize the business. But it sounds like it takes how would you take that to Asia if you didn't have government support? Would you have to work for this whole enterprise to work? Does it need to be plugged into what a government's doing? Do you need government backing?
It would be both. So, ideally, so we were talking about PIF beforehand, so they pay, I don't know what it is, 3 billion a year for golf.
Yeah.
We'll take 1% of 1% of that, and we can rule the world in OCR.
Yeah.
So if you could find someone like that to take this Arabic brand or to rule the world, then that'd be easy. But for example, in Thailand, like the people we know there, and it's all people we work with friends.
Yeah.
Not necessarily driven by, again, competency. It's just, do we get on? And generally you're going to find competent people. That's what happens in life. But so we talk to our friends there, like, if we want to bring this here, this is what you need to do. We need a location that's fun. Obviously Thailand has 80 million people, all of whom do athletic pursuits, so that's a win. But you need to find someone in government who will make it work, and that doesn't necessarily need to be cash. It could be help us save money by providing the services, the facilities, by opening doors, by giving permits. If we can get 10,000 people to an event, which is possible in Thailand, it's very difficult here.
Yeah.
Then, we make it work. And the quantum of Arabian Warrior, if Middle East is doing really, really well and Thailand's going to lose a bit of money, but the whole thing is getting bigger, then
that works well for the
But
business.
it'll be a while before we make that commitment.
So here in order for the business to work, you need strong government support, and I guess you need a good commercial team to bring in sponsors as well. And that's the way you're going to grow it.
We work with I don't know if you know Dune 23. So we work with them, really nice guys doing a good job. So they help us on commercials.
Okay.
We've got our internal team as well. I mean, I think a lot of the world looks as Dubai, the Middle East is like, Dubai is kind of the standard bearer. And they think, it must be easy or it must be difficult. No one knows. And many industries, it can be easy. I think increasingly it's just, you have to work hard. If you're not working hard, you're going to fail. Obviously helps to have the contacts, and some contacts here can just, and away you go. But even those, you need to prove why those things are happening. You need to support. Thank you very much for making that quick decision, but I want results. Then, expectation levels here are, they want, I went to that Dubai Sports Symposium recently, and like, everything they want to do is number one. You've got to be the best. You've got to be the biggest. You've got to be. That's the approach to life, and it's what's driven this part of the world forward. Saudi's the same. Qatar's the same. Everybody.
And you can piggyback on the back of that enthusiasm and nationalism and support and need to get the nation fit. And your business is well primed to support that.
And I think that the only thing that I push to the staff is, like, we really just have to care about it. So when we're talking to sponsors, talking to governments, what is it you want? I really want to make you satisfied. I'm not trying here to make a business. My business will be successful if you guys are happy. We're not a business that is, we don't make decisions based on finance.
But as a business, you're a lot more attractive as a proposition, I suppose, from a valuation perspective, because you created your own entities now. You're not franchising someone else's, right? You fully own your entities.
Yeah.
And so there's a product there that someone could. I don't know what the eventual plans are, but there's an exit strategy there. Therefore, right?
We've got a local guy who's invested into the company.
Fantastic.
Who is really, really, really.
So he's seen the opportunity and put money in already.
Yeah, I don't know whether I think he obviously must view it as an opportunity. He's just a friend of ours. I'm not going to name check him, but he's just a really solid citizen who has helped us build business. Local guy, Emirati chap, helped us. In many, many ways, and he's just he's a guy that you can rely on.
Yeah,
and if you can rely on people, everything else falls into place. If you can trust someone, everything falls into place, and that's kind of what I want this business to be: is care, trust, honor, look after people. Just your word is important, And if you're doing that, and it wouldn't work in many other places around the world. We're lucky we're here, because if you do that thing, there's lots of people that don't do that. We're lucky we're in a niche industry. There's not much competition. That's by choice. So we just feel as though if we do all those things, work really hard, the industry is growing. Government here does support you. You have to look after those people. It's it's a load of fun.
Yeah,
it's a load of fun. We do these events all the time. You go to the events, I get to interact with thousands of people. You see the Instagram videos. I'm a close to 60-year-old man doing hard house dances in the sand. It's just like, what are you doing? My friends are like, what are you doing? I'm happy. Yeah.
And so, in order for all this to happen, you're a family guy. You talked a lot about your wife. You talk what's it like now having a startup, a fast growth, multi-region startup with a how old are your kids?
11. My son's 11.
11. Yeah. So what's it like having a family here and running that? I mean, how are you managing to fuse that together? I guess it's hectic.
I'm really lucky that it's not.
Okay.
And that's, partly because I'm a pretty relaxed person, but also because, my wife could not be more supportive. My son's a really nice guy.
Well, that's always a bonus.
That seems weird to say about an 11-year-old. He's such an organized, he's very different to me. Yeah. So he is not a risk taker.
Yeah.
And maybe that's come from, but he's the opposite of a risk taker. Yeah. But they're really, they help me, they keep me grounded.
Yeah.
And they're number one. So, but they're pretty chilled about life as well.
Yeah.
Steph works with us. She's really
organized.
Yeah.
Wow.
She looks after customer service.
Okay.
She's she's a very organized person.
Yeah.
So it's and Dubai's a really nice place to be.
Yeah.
It's an easy place to live. It's an expensive place to live, but it's an easy place to live.
Yeah.
And it's really, really easy to build your unit. It's less easy to build other units. It's not the most social place in certain ways.
Yeah.
We found Oman was a much more, for our age group, my age group, she's younger than me. But it's good. Like it's a good place to live.
Yeah.
And I'm enabled to focus on work, and because it's a family business now, the two are combined. So if I'm making a family decision, it's also impacting my work decision.
Yeah.
Whereas those family decisions, I guess I made before, is either work or family. Whereas now it's provided with the business is working. If it fails, then I'll have to get a job doing something else and move to Glasgow or something.
Yeah. And what's, I suppose, in those early years of your business, because you've just finished year 2, was there a point where you thought this isn't going to work, or why am I doing this? Have you had that moment? What's been the toughest moment?
No, I think I've always known it would work, but there's been occasions when, cash, as a small business owner, cash is, without you can kill your business. You can be a successful business you can be really, really successful. If your cash flow is not good, then you're dead.
Yeah.
So it's just been managing the cash. So I've invested a lot in this business.
Of your own personal money?
My time, my health has not been great. I'm definitely not sick, but I could be a lot less stressed than I am. And finance, I borrowed money.
Yeah.
So if it works, when it works, I'll be very happy with my circumstances. But for cash flow, it's
You've taken a lot of risk.
I've taken a lot of risk.
Yeah.
That I'm not going to let my wife watch this part of the video because she'll be like, "What are we talking about?"
Yeah.
It's just, there's been times over the last 2 years. So like year one, it was like, right, well, let's not get paid for 4 months. Year two, okay, well, I need to do that rather than this.
Yeah.
But just because of cash flow, because of cash flow, this part of the world is famous for some payments.
A little bit late.
When will you pay me tomorrow? Okay.
Yeah.
Define tomorrow. 6 months time. Other than that,
that's a nervous laugh because I'm on the position at the end of it. So,
it's the same. Yeah. Other than that, we do know that governments can change their mind at any time. But, they come to our events, they see the passion we have for it. Like we've launched this year, we launched the schools program in the UAE, we launched the schools program in KSA, whereby we're helping these kids enjoy a sport that is a lot of fun, providing free tickets to our events, sort of putting a talent pathway in place. There isn't a governing body per se of OCR, certainly here. Certainly once not invested in that, and coming from my other sports, you need this talent pathway so you can build professional athletes. So, the Dubai Games I mentioned, the world's best OCR athletes come and they win. We would like to create a team that wins the kids event soon, and then in 4 years' time wins the men's event. Yeah, and we have the world's best athletes. That it's not us, not just us. There's loads of other people doing OCR, but we want to work with a community. So we did an event in Abu Dhabi last week where we invited all the local OCR groups to come. It was a long way away, but they came, had a great time. We're going to try and find ways of pushing people to their sport, to them. So, I think the sport will grow. We have a really big part of making that work. So the governments who support it, the more we're doing of that, they like it. But we don't, we're frugal with asking for too much money. We don't go, pay us millions. We don't do that. It's like, what is going to work for you? Because if you don't, we can't do it. But if you do, we can do it. And then benefits accrue to everybody. Just been honest with the governments to stick with it. That's, if we protect that. We got asked to do the NAS Games recently. Okay. That was the Dubai government asked us to come and do, and the feedback was that was the best it's been done. So there's more and more and more. And, eventually we'll do the other sports, but certainly for them.
Seems like you got a great niche. And you were telling me off camera that OCR is going to be in the Olympics now.
Yeah, it's in the pentathlon,
which is
one of the 5.
That's the dream many GCC and Middle East countries want there. Want to win a medal, right? So you're playing to that tune as well.
Yeah, we had a local athlete came third in our event of the weekend, beating Czechs, Russians. We had maybe 15 of the world's best athletes come. The world's best man won and the world's best woman won, and they were Dutch and Russian. But as a local athlete came third.
Phenomenal.
So we would like eventually to work with government to help. I'm on the board of UAE Pentathlon as a representative for obstacle course racing. I'm the wrong demographic, 55-year-old and 20 years past my physical peak, but I know the business world. I own an OCR brand, and I really care about the region. So those 3 things make a good mix, I think.
And it's a great having conversations at that level is a great sign for your business as well, because you're talking, you're well known, you've got the right connections, and this is a relationship region, make no bones about it. You for anyone that's thinking of coming here or is here, if you're going to grow your business, you do it through relationships. And you do it particularly if you've got relationships at a government level. So if you and I have to have this conversation again in 5 years' time, or perhaps even less than that, 3 years' time, where would you like to see the business?
So we would. I'm just going to focus on the OCR. So there would be other stuff, but I think if we focused on that for 3 years, it would be calendar is known. Maybe we've got a couple of other events in the summer, but calendar is known. We'd like to put a structure around it. So the schools programs are fully working. We're just about to employ a development officer whose job it is just to go to schools and promote the sport. So that's not a commercial decision, but the structure is known. Schools are filtering in. We've sold out every single kids event. We've put on top a regional championship. And ideally, we're paying for the pro athletes, that are local pro athletes, to go to Nevada, Greece, to win the global OCR championships representing the region, whether it's Arabian Warrior or whatever it is. And all that's really, it is achievable, if we get ourselves organized. So, the simple summary of that is I'd like to have achieved what a business, literally it's written down on a piece of paper. I'd like to achieve my objectives in the last couple of years. It's not blue sky thinking. It's that's what we're going to do. We're going to do this, and it will happen. Because, like I said, it's not football. No matter what you do in football, you're not going to beat Brazil.
But here you've got the opportunity to own the OCR landscape, really, and
in the region,
and you really are on track. If not, you've already done it, really. So when you to become a clear dominant force in that space.
Well, we're doing the most events. Got the biggest. I hope Spartan goes really well because, like I said, the more the industry grows,
absolutely.
There's 2 or 3 other brands who do. There's the Metal Games. There's similar. The functional fitness is OCR is part of function. You've got High Rocks. You've got CrossFit. And it's a really cool. I do a triathlon, which is a big brand, but functional fitness is probably more fun. Probably better for you. And this region has a problem with fitness. Putting aside the expats, problem with fitness, and we just want people to use sport to be able to use sport to improve your daily life. So,
and who knows, you could help create an Olympic gold medal from the work that you do as well for the region, which would be an amazing achievement. Nic, I think that's a great place to end our conversation. Thanks a lot for being so honest and telling me your story.
Thanks, it was really enjoyable.
I really, really enjoyed that. Guys, I hope you enjoyed this episode. Please do subscribe to the channel, and we look forward to catching you next time.